The English football pyramid is a peculiar thing, especially the further down the pyramid you go. Indeed, you'll find local businessmen, foreign nationals, and even some A-list Hollywood actors. But what happens when a club that no one's really heard of comes out of the blue and starts rocketing up the league? We've seen teams such as Fylde, Eastleigh and Billericay Town try without success, but there have been some success stories. Look at Forest Green Rovers, for example. But what happens when a club becomes too successful? Is there even such a thing? Enter stage left, Rushden Diamonds. Founded as a merger of two clubs in 1992, those being Rushden Town and Eventual Diamonds, the brainchild of Max Grigg, the then owner of shoe company Doc Martens. Griggs, whom at the time was the 50th richest man in Britain, wanted to invest in football, and considering Doc Martens' factory was based in Northamptonshire, it made sense to buy a local club. The new club would have Rushden Town's place in the football pyramid, the Southern League Midlands division, and the new club would play at Eventual Diamonds Neen Park, or if you're from Northampton, Nen Park. I don't know why you call it that, it's so obviously Neen. And that is the pronunciation I'll be sticking with throughout this video. Back to the story, what happened next was nothing short of spectacular. By 1996, 4 years after the club was formed, it had reached the Conference National. An investment of £30 million into Neen Park alone brought their stadium to the standard of most Division 1 clubs at the time, with a capacity of just over 6,500, a staggering capacity for a non-league ground at the time. By 2001, the club had reached the Football League 3rd Division, now of course League 2, managed by ex-Arsenal and Ipswich player Brian Talbot. Within one season, in their first season in the 3rd Division, they'd finished 6th, qualifying them for the Division 3 playoffs, despite a dramatic 2-leg encounter with Rochdale in which they won 4-3 in extra time of the second leg. It wasn't to be for the Diamonds. They lost the playoff final at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff to Cheltenham Town by 3-1. For most teams, that would create pressure, meaning the club would not be as high-flying the following season. It's a first season. They did very well, but they won't do as well in the second season, right? Heightened expectations and everything. You'd be wrong. Rushden Diamonds were anything but conventional and would go on to win the Division 3 title, beating the likes of Hartlepool United, Wrexham and Bournemouth. By the 2003-04 season, now a Division 2 club, League 1 as its modern day name, with fixtures against the likes of Queen's Park Rangers, Brighton and Hove Albion, Sheffield Wednesday, and of course the greatest team to wear red north of Barcelona, Swindon Town. Unfortunately, this would be as good as it would get for the Diamonds, as they would instantly return to the 3rd Division, finishing 3rd from bottom in the Division 2 season, and it would be the club's first ever relegation since being founded in 1992. It was here when the club's spending on its stadium, training ground and other expenses such as player transfers would start to have an effect on the team. It was in 2003 that Griggs' Doc Martens empire almost went bankrupt. It closed its production sites in Northamptonshire and moved manufacturing to China and Thailand. But more important to our story is a football club that didn't make any money. In fact, the Diamonds were spending at the time £2.5 million over their prospective income. In fact, by the end of the Division 2 season, they were a week away from administration, so there was a fire sale ahead of the 04-05 season. Back in the 3rd Division, now rebranded officially as League 2, the Diamonds survived relegation back to non-league by 6 points, finishing 22nd in the league, but by the 2005-2006 League 2 season, the club's luck had finally run out, finishing bottom of the Football League with 45 points, relegated alongside Oxford United, and this club, Oxford United, will be of interest a little bit later in our story. The club's return to the conference in the 2006-2007 season not only saw changes in ownership but in management and in playing staff, with 13 players and then manager Barry Hunter sacked. He'd only been appointed in January of that year, replaced by Paul Hart, who would last until December 2006 before being replaced by Graham Westley, who would leave in February of 2007 to be replaced by Gary Hill. The new owners of the club were the Supporters Trust, who had acquired the club from previous owner Max Griggs for £1, and that was during their final season in the Football League. But higher than average running costs and declining attendances meant that this was an uphill challenge. In 2007, it was clear that the club's supporters couldn't continue to support the club as owners, so the club was handed over to local businessman Keith Cousins. This agreement would see Cousins become the club chairman and cover club debt with short-term loans. Gary Hill, as manager, could only finish 12th and 16th in 2 seasons in the conference, with the average attendance for the club being half the size of which it was in the Football League. Some positives for the 08-09 season: former Tottenham player Justin Edinburgh, the late but great Justin Edinburgh, was appointed manager in February of 2009 and ended up finishing 11th in the conference. Edinburgh's side got off to a positive start the following season for the 2009-2010 campaign. By the end of the season, they had an opportunity to get back into the Football League by qualifying for the playoffs, but it wasn't to be. Their losing semi-final effort to Oxford United, who, if you remember, were relegated alongside Rushden Diamonds the same season from the Football League. Expectation was another potential promotion push for the following season, that despite mounting debts and the club still operating at a loss, Cousins sold the club to Gary Calder and Liam Besant halfway through the 2010-2011 season. This is where the club reached the terminal stage of its decline, as Calder left months after purchasing the club. The club would finish 13th mid-table in the conference. However, that would be it for Rushden Diamonds. The taxman told the club it would need to raise £750,000, that's £750,000, within 2 weeks to avoid a winding up petition. The club were then expelled from the conference because of their financial position meant they were unable to fulfil the fixture list. The Southern League declined the Diamonds' application to join the league for the 2011-2012 season, and by July 7th, 2011, the club had entered administration. Our story doesn't end there though, because Diamonds fans would have to watch arch rivals Kettering Town call Neen Park their home for 18 months. Kettering at that time also not in the greatest of financial positions. After that, the stadium lay dormant for 6 years as a great opportunity for urban explorers to have a look at abandoned sports stadiums. However, in 2017, demolition work began on the ground and it was turned into a combination of housing and retail. For Rushden Diamonds, though, their story does live on as AFC Rushden Diamonds, founded in 2011 and currently plying their trade in the Southern League Premier Division Central.